hello to like the two people who will watch this. Because I am a little bit stupid and I couldn't figure out how to stream, I ended up editing my entire time lapse of me digitally drawing this into a video. Here's the first time lapse. As you can see, I'm literally just tracing my paper reference image because I didn't want to waste too much time on line art and just get straight into the coloring, since the color is what's missing with all of my paper sketches. Also, you can tell that I way overestimated my drawing speed because I did the entire reference section in this like tiny corner and I thought I'd use the rest of the space to draw some cool original things. But no, I spent 15 hours on this little reference corner and then I was just like, okay, I'm making this into a video. I can't keep this going for any longer. Now, because I am drawing in this tiny little corner, I'm just gonna pan the video in so you can see everything clearly. Unfortunately, my device just has limitations and it refuses to handle videos that have higher resolution. So, although my actual art isn't this low resolution, the quality just got bricked the moment I try to turn it into a video. You can kind of tell how my drawing process is going to go already. I almost always start from face out and then go top down. I will color and render. I know you're not supposed to render a reference sheet, but I did render and shade this just because it looked so bad with only flat colors. Okay, I need to actually talk about what I'm here for, this design. I'm not gonna go super in-depth about what Jirai is here because way too many people have already made really good videos explaining that, and I don't think I need to. Basically, it's a mix of cutesy and dark that I thought would really fit this specific idea, because I wanted an event skin that isn't purely goofy. Because so many of the event skins for the darker concept edgier legends in Brawlhalla are just so goofy that I want to do something that's actually still a little bit serious and kind of in character. Now, we all know no design happens without at least some amount of inspiration. However, I quickly ran into some problems trying to find some reference images. First of all, if you just search Jirai on the internet, literally all of the examples you'll see are going to be feminine ones. If you search Jirai Danshi or Jirai Boy, you will get a lot of subcode Jirai, which does not really look like the main Jirai style that most people will think of. The top came pretty naturally to me. It was just a standard looking blouse, and the corset looking part is inspired by Lovely Lore's outfit from her video on Jirai. The shoes are also just a straight ripoff of actual Timonica's. I know heels are impractical and all that, but if literally almost every other video game developer can draw 90% of their female characters in 4-inch stilettos, then I can get away with drawing one design that has heels, okay? The pants were definitely the hardest part to design. I wanted to keep the look of gartered stockings without actually doing shorts or skirt and stockings because I just genuinely think shorts are really ugly. There is always something that looks better than shorts in every single scenario. And that's how we got to this weird sections thing that I ended up leaving it as. I don't know how much I like it, but I also just don't think I could design anything better in a reasonable amount of time. And here you can see me starting out with the flat coloring. I knew I would use black and pink, but I didn't really know how the details would work out, so you can see me try things like making the blouse pink, which I immediately hated. I tend to color everything that needs to be one color all at once, so you can see me color all of the skin tone parts, and then try to place all of the pink, and then now I'm placing all of the dark gray that will become black after I shade it. Yes, the middle section of the pants are supposed to be mesh because they're netting, but I had to block them in opaque because the legs actually don't connect behind there. I tried on my paper sketch and I just don't think I can make it work. Also, you can tell I'm a bit slower coloring and lacing because it's such a tight space. You can count the pixels in there. And that's the first time lapse. There's actually 4 sections of this. As you can see immediately in this part 2, I have another reference image. This is actually a 5th drawing I made after the original short. It was supposed to be a scrapbook page or a collage. I think it ended up looking like a poster on a wall. But it's supposed to be a bunch of small pictures in one big picture. I'll talk more about it after we go through all of these time-lapse segments. Panning back to the tiny corner I'm working in, I'm finishing up the coloring. I know you can't really tell what I'm doing here, but I'm just cleaning up some small details, like the lace on the wrist cuff and the mesh areas. Oh, and my layers are a bit messed up. Oh no, it's back to normal now. And then I started by coloring the scythe first for the weapon skins. Yes, I drew as a Kusarigama I care more about the lore and character dynamics than like the actual game mechanics. Also, you can see right now, at first I tried to get the blade to be like a darker, like obsidian textured color, but it wasn't working out very well, especially because I wanted to have like this paint splatter motif on the blades of its weapons. Why paint splatters? Well, I felt like I needed a bit more pink there, and it's a little less dark than the more obvious option. Once again, I have no idea what I was doing at this time because of my video quality being awful, but I think I was just changing up little details on the weighted end. And I'm coloring the swords now. Yes, I drew two, and I gave them the sort of like mirrored color scheme, where the black parts on one are pink on the other, and vice versa. I know this would never make it into the game, but like BMG would never add fan-made skins to the game because of like copyright reasons, so I'm gonna dream. You can also sort of see now what I meant by the whole paint splatters theme. I finished up with the weapons, and then I decided that I'm gonna recolor all the mesh from pink to gray because the pink mesh looked a little bit weird and it blended in too much with the pink upper strap of the lower section of his pants. And I know it's really obvious, like from this, like you can see everything perspective, that the line art is on two different layers, but I actually like genuinely didn't realize that while I was working on this because I was so focused on like a small area. I feel like in general, part of the reason why I am like so slow at digital art, like it took me like 15 hours to draw and render like a basic reference sheet, because I'm just really focused on details. I get super caught up on like singular pixels that are out of place, and then I just don't look at the big picture. Anyhow, on the time lapse, you can tell I'm starting to render. I would say rendering is like most definitely the slowest step of like the art process for me, because although I have like a like cartoony liner and colory style, I actually like smooth shade, so like, I have to blend everything out, and then I have to do that like multiple times just to get it to look right. So at this point in the time lapse, I'm rendering the hair. I actually render hair a bit differently from the way I render everything else, where I duplicate the shape in my shading color, and then I sort of like erase out the highlighted areas. Then I typically draw in the highlight inside my erased out area so the shadows and highlights line up in shape. Also, you can tell that the next thing I do is add this like sort of blue thing around the back of his head. This is to create a sort of backlight. It just makes it look like a little less boring and a little more dynamic and a little less flat. It's time to move on to the next section of time lapse. And in between here, you can see a sudden change because I actually had a session in between these two time lapses that I just forgot to record. I've mainly dimensioned his corset, belts, and pants. You can see I haven't done anything on a blouse, and I said I work from like face out, top down. Well, that's because like the blouse is white, and I actually tend not to color in white areas like say his white shirt or the scleras of eyes. I clip my shading onto the coloring layer, and that keeps the shading from going into places that are supposed to be white, and it just reduces the amount of like erasing I have to do. It does mean that I have to put any shading that is supposed to be on like a different layer on like another layer. It's like a shading 2 layer that goes underneath the color instead of on top, so that the colors will cover it in the places that aren't supposed to be white. I don't know if that actually makes it easier, but that's just the way I've been doing it, and like I'm just really used to it. So you can see that I'm rendering in the heels, and I'm like almost done basically. But then you can see that the shading suddenly jumps darker because I duplicated the shading layer. Why? Because I thought the like blush was like a little like too bright and that it distracted from his eyes, and I was trying to fix that. However, at that time I didn't immediately have an idea for how to like make it like darker but not like also more like saturated. So I kind of just left it and then went on to like rendering white parts like his blouse and then the weapons. I really didn't put that much effort into rendering the weapons. I like barely know how to render metal anyway. Instead, I kind of just focused on fixing the problems with like the blush being too bright and getting the focus back onto his eyes. And that's pretty much the end of the time lapse actually. So now I guess it's time to reveal what this looks like without having absolutely bricked video quality. Yes, you can actually see all of the details now. I'm also just gonna put a little close-up sort of on his like face here because I just have an obsession with drawing eyes. Cause like I know at this point like barely anyone's gonna see these, so like why not just make these little videos for myself? I also just really like the detail of like the heart cutout on his cheek. I know it's like really small, you can barely see it. But to me, as like a detail and design obsessed person, I really like that it shows like the blush is fake. But now that's really it. So I'm just gonna put like the sort of like finished result up for a few more seconds. Oh, and I actually don't have names for the weapon skins yet. So if anybody actually has any, put them in the comments. And that's the actual end of video number 2. Enjoy some B-roll footage of my cat getting head pats. Please subscribe and bye.